I just did a video about the chutzpah I feel is required of me to do the very best that I can to get out into the world something that I think could have a beneficial impact on the human future, which I regard as a toss-up between whether we're going to get our act together or whether we're going to self-destruct. And I can show that the muddle through option is disappearing, and it's going to be either get our act together or it's going to be some self-inflicted catastrophe. And if I think that what I've got to offer is potentially could affect which way it went in such a toss-up. If I think that it would have a beneficial impact, if I were to get this thing out into the world, which I don't have that much more time to try to do. It's not like when I started over 50 years ago with the first big piece. It's late in the fourth quarter. I got to do everything I got. And if I think that the showing chutzpah is potentially going to help accomplish the mission, then I got to do it. So here's a particular story. I'm a graduate of Harvard University in 1967. All the people who are connected with Harvard over all the years get this magazine. 250,000 people, I believe, I understand, get Harvard Magazine, which is a really very respectable publication, and people who went to med school and law school and education school and the graduate school and all the undergraduates like what I was get this thing. And I spend time with every issue I get because there are a lot of good reasons. So in the back, toward the back of the magazine, there's a section that's called class notes, and there's another section which is obituaries, where as classes have less and less to report in the class notes, there are more and more appearing of them appearing in the obituaries. And I always check my class, both the obituaries, see if anybody that I knew had kicked the bucket since the last issue, and they come out 6 times a year. And I always look on my class notes every once in a while, but it's gotten rarer and rarer as people in the class of 1967 stop having appropriate kinds of things to report. And it's not obvious exactly what the appropriate kinds of things are, but usually it will have something to do with achievement. But sometimes life circumstances. But it is a place where there is an audience that is very rich, and I don't mean in terms of wealth. I mean, there are a lot of minds out there that one might reach if you made some, if you had something to say that they would read. And here's where the chutzpah comes in. I decided, my class has not been saying much for a good while. And I just completed something which was meaningful for me to complete, even though it's not like the kind of achievements most other people would have. But it gave me an opportunity to put out the message in some meaningful way to my classmates and all the other classes and all the rest of them, if they want to read it. It's an opportunity which I am obliged to take. And so I do the chutzpah of putting together a statement which is, in a way fits what the space is generally used for, but differs in a couple of ways, which are chutzpah-ish. First of all, I'm putting out some ideas as part of my presentation. I am making a kind of a case, and I'm telling, and I'm going at greater length than is usual. Maybe the far boundaries, but it's definitely, when I sent it off, I thought that that there was a real chance that they wouldn't publish it for either of those reasons. That either it was too much of a delivering a message, and I'll read it to you in a minute. But I could imagine they would say, this isn't appropriate, and pitch it. And, or, oh, this is too long. And they either pitch it or say, I got to cut it. Well, time went by. There's a lag period. You send it in. And a fair amount of time went by. And then I got an email from somebody at Harvard Magazine, right, saying they have a space shortage and they're going to have to cut a part of it out. And she showed me what was going to be cut. And I thought, well, if you got to cut it, she had done a great job. The problem was that it took out of it some of the additional dimensions that there are to this than the first dimension, the parable of the tribes, and the pieces that derives from it, which are several important ones. But anyway, it was a good job, and they said they would have the whole thing on the and there was nothing in her email message which made me think that my chutzpah that she saw it as a problem. But it took something for me to take that step, and I cleared it with my brother, for example, who advises me on what risks to take and what not to take. But now I basically I take them all. So here's what I wrote to that 250,000 people that I hope some of them will read it, and some of those maybe look into it. I've just published an essay of roughly 6,000 words, presenting my life's work, an integrated set of ideas wrapped under the title, A Better Human Story. By better, I mean both more valid than what is generally believed and potentially having a beneficial impact on the human future. Included among the main ideas that I've derived over the past half century from examining the story of our species in an evolutionary perspective, starting with the implications of a creature taking the unprecedented and fateful step of inventing its own way of life, as humankind did some 10 millennia ago, are these. Bullet point. Any creature on any planet, anywhere in the cosmos, that takes the step onto the path of civilization, regardless of its inherent nature, will inevitably unleash a social evolutionary process as destructive and tormented as ours has been. Therefore, another bullet point, the ugliness we see in human history is not human nature writ large. Next bullet point. The emergence of civilization out of a biologically evolved order inevitably generates two discernible, coherent forces, one consistently life-serving, the other life-degrading, whose conflict will be at the center of the drama of the civilization-creating species. bullet point. Inevitably, too, that conflict will eventually require such a species to confront this inevitable central challenge, to order its civilization well enough, soon enough, to avoid self-destruction and survive for the long haul. That's the main part that wasn't going to be omitted to save space. Here is a part that she did a good job if she had to cut, but I still was sorry to see go. Plus these, bullet point. The inborn tendencies of our species to experience things in certain ways are not merely subjective being in quotation marks, as a major hole in the understanding of the general secular worldview, because the experiential has been discounted in the name of objectivity being the same as reality. But these inborn tendencies have been selected for in the evolutionary process because they helped our ancestors to pass their DNA into the future. In other words, they were life-serving or they wouldn't be there. In that evolutionary perspective, and this is the last of those bullet points, and from our inborn tendency to experience things as better and worse, and our inborn capacity for spiritually transformative experience, it can be shown that both the moral and the spiritual dimensions are real, important, and life-serving. Believing that all these propositions can be compellingly established, I said in real chutzpah that seems to me called for, given the mission. And believe also that this better human story would fortify us in our efforts to create a more viable and humane civilization. Rather than having the human story culminate in some self-inflicted catastrophe, I remain, at the age of 77, a man on a mission. Lots of chutzpah in that. But part of my calling has involved giving myself the assignment to say things in the world exactly as I see them. Just not claiming any more or any less than how I would say things to myself. It's a risky and challenging thing to be oneself around a thing that makes the kind of claims that look like chutzpah. But what I feel about what's important, what's really important, is that our civilization start changing its consciousness in a variety of important ways that make it more likely that we're going to create a different kind of a human world, one where we are not making it possible again and again for something like a nuclear holocaust to happen because we've rearranged the global order, and who are not acting on the planet like a destructive bull in a china shop because we've learned to live in harmony with the planet. These are the things that need to be achieved. everything that's sacred is at stake. I mean, we bleed over what's happening in Ukraine and in the Middle East, and we are in danger as a species that created civilization of failing to get our act together in time. So if we care about that sort of thing, I think we need all the tools we can get. There'll be a lot of different tools required to turn civilization toward creating the kind of world that can live on this planet for the long haul. But one of those is the making some important changes in the way we understand what we are, why we have traversed this course, and what are the central challenges that we face. There's just too much at stake to hold anything back. Check it out, please. Thank you.